Brett here with another pinch of salt. When I was a kid, I used to love going to the zoo. It was fun to walk around and see the animals as best you could because you had to stand back and look through the bars because they kept them in cages, right? Well, that's pretty much how most zoos everywhere were. Later on, when I was about 12 or 13, a new idea came out to try and keep animals in their enclosure by using natural barriers. And that was kind of interesting. It was a zoological garden, they called it. And they had one where I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, called the Riverbanks Zoological Garden. And when you go there, you could see animals, and there were no more cages. You know, sometimes they were kept in their enclosure by a little ditch or a little wall that didn't look like it could stop anything, but they wouldn't cross it. Well, it was partly psychology because, for instance, an African impala can jump 10 feet high and 30 feet long, but a simple 5-foot wall will keep it enclosed because an impala, if it can't see where its feet are going to land, will not jump. Also, an elephant can be kept in its enclosure by a simple 4-foot ditch, and that's because an elephant won't cross a ditch that it can't touch the bottom of with its trunk simply by lowering its head. You see, because they can't see the bottom or they can't see where they're going to land, the fear of the unknown keeps them in their enclosures. And I thought that's pretty much a lot like life, isn't it? Sometimes things in our lives create such fear, like not knowing what the next step is, not knowing if I do this where I'm going to land. And it keeps us from moving on and growing because we're depending on only the things we can see. Today's text in ASL is 2 Corinthians 5:7, which says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." That's what I'm going to teach you in ASL today. So let's go over and stand up and I'll show you how to sign it. Again, our text is 2 Corinthians 5:7, which says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." I'm going to do mostly a C-sign interpretation again. I'm going to use a little bit of ASL interpreting just for one part, but I'll explain that. All right, so here we go. For we walk, and I'm going to go with, because by kind of implies that we walk with faith and not depending on. I'm going to use this sign, depend, instead of walking by sight, because that means walking because we can see something, so kind of depending on sight. So not by sight. So all together again, for we walk with faith, not depending on sight. And that text is 2 Corinthians 5:7, which is another promise that God gives us. It says, don't live in fear. You don't have to live in fear. Those little things in life that come along and kind of keep us locked up because we're afraid of what the next step might be, or we can't see what the next move is or where we're going. Walk by faith. Trust that God has promised us, seek me first and I will add everything else unto you. That no flower in the world was dressed as great as Solomon, and that they're here today and gone tomorrow. How much more do I love you than the flowers? God has promised to take care of us, and with that, we can walk by faith in His promises and not just by what we see.